Hey, this is Kirk.
And this is Byrd.
It's
Kirk
Kirk
and
and
Byrd
Byrd
show.
show. That's right.
Yeah. Hey,
Sunday
Kirk, good to see
night.
you, man.
It's good to see you, man. That
Yep.
Cowboys Patriots game. Did you see it?
No, not no.
Uh,
I've kind of followed it on my phone, but I haven't watched it specifically.
Overtime. They scored over and over again in like the last 3 minutes. But we want to talk about a couple things in this segment, and that is the Hokies lost to Pittsburgh, and then college football overall, the top 25, the playoff, etc. So your thoughts, Rusty, on Pittsburgh beating Virginia Tech 28-7 at homecoming in Blacksburg?
Okay, so that game, it hurt me, man. It hurt me because I was hoping to be wrong on some of the things, my analysis prior to the season, even during the season when there were some highs with the Carolina win. And then, the disappointment with West Virginia and then Notre Dame. And it was like here we go again. Here we go again. And, a lot can be said for Pittsburgh. They're actually balling. Their quarterback, from what I've seen and what I've heard, he should be maybe in the conversation for Heisman Trophy candidate. He's breaking a lot of Dan Marino's records. Right now, he, to me, looks to be the best passer in the ACC. And he looked to be legit in a windy Lane Stadium. But so Pittsburgh, they came in and this was their chance to kind of continue and prove that they're a pretty good team. And so they did what they were supposed to do. But I think our job was to show that we're better than the losses to Notre Dame and and West Virginia. And we didn't do it. And it goes back to what I asked you a few weeks ago. I said, who's the dominant player for Virginia Tech's offense? And you're right. The obvious answer is Burmeister. But it's dominant because, like you said, the ball is in his hands a lot. He's athletic. He can run. But I'm looking at these sub 200-yard passing games. He's the leading rusher or second leading rusher with sub 100 or 50 or even 75 yards rushing. And when I mean dominant, I mean who does the other team fear? And right now, nobody fears anyone. And for me, the disappointment is you bring in a Fuente who was known for the offense. We thought that would be, along with our traditional great defense, that we would be able to do something. And this is what, year 6?
This is year 6.
Yeah. So he's gotten his recruits, he's gotten his system in place, and it's disappointing. Yeah, all of it. So go ahead. That's how I feel. I was disappointed in the game. We can go score by score by score, but I'm looking at a macro level of the game and where we stand.
If you want to defend Burmeister with the win, then what about the other side? Because they feel it just fine. And I think Pittsburgh is the leader to win the ACC. I could see Pittsburgh, Clemson, or NC State. And Burmeister, as I said in our preview, he had to play better. He had to play better. He did not play. He played subpar. He played worse than Notre Dame. And, I realize he's a kid, but this is a big business, and fans and talking heads. If you think Virginia Tech's going crazy right now out on social media. If you think this is bad, go down to LSU, and we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
They're
go down to LSU, bro.
$17 million. We'll talk about that in a heartbeat like that. So if people think that fans are tough up here, but yeah, with the Hokies, I think it's time to get real because we're 3-3. We're 6 games into this. We're halfway through. I think I know what we have. We're not waiting for a big player to come back or anything like that. 5 or 6 wins. That's what I see. 5-7 or 6-6.
Yeah.
Which segues to Justin Fuente. The guy's 45 years old. He's going into his 7th year. I realize he's a human being. I realize he's got a wife and kids. I realize he's got a staff and all that. And when people go, but if you're going to be real out there, this is called being real. And bottom line is the 7th year, he was booed before the game, and the floodgates are open. And we got a pretty good Syracuse team coming into Lane Stadium, and then it's a road trip from there. I mean, what are your thoughts? Because on December 16th, key point, I believe the buyout goes down $2.5 million.
Yeah, that's what we were kind of waiting for. Yeah. So let me say this. Regarding Fuente, let me say this. I know we even, before the season, you were like, hey, look, he's the coach. We want to, support him. He's got a family. But you know what? He also took a job at a Power 5 school that's in the South that has had success, has played for a national championship, has had a traditionally strong recruiting base, and has expectations after having won ACC championships. Did we ever win a Big East championship? Yeah, we clearly probably won Big East championship. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we won Big East championships. And Virginia Tech had become, a team that people look to as a college football power. I mean, we began to dominate and play well and actually have a legitimate rivalry against Miami. So we were in the conversation. And so, I understand kind of the feelings about, Frank Beamer, maybe it was time, but I go back to Phil Fulmer at Tennessee. And I remember telling folks, Tennessee is a crazy football town, state in Knoxville, but I said, be careful what you ask for because you don't know what's coming. And I'm not saying that Beamer needed to still be here because if he was doing this, it wouldn't be acceptable. But I think when I talk about Fuente, I'm going, you know what? He took the money for a Power 5 job at a school that has had 2 decades of success, and this is a part of the expectation. When you took the money, you needed to be able to produce certain things. Again, we had the longest bowl consecutive winning streak, and it's not hard to make a bowl nowadays. We have certain expectations. You as an alumni, me as a fan, me having family that's attended and played there, me being a person from the state of Virginia. And so I got to tell you, I'm disappointed. I wanted to be wrong. Right now, when I look at the remaining schedule, we could beat every team on the rest of the schedule, and I could see us losing to every team remaining on the schedule. Syracuse played Clemson very tough. Yep. Georgia Tech, all of these teams, and this is the type of thing that will happen. And I told you this. Okay, we'll beat UNC, but then we'll lose to West Virginia, who's not really that good. I could see us beating Syracuse, Georgia Tech, BC, and then losing to Duke and UVA. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't see that.
I do. Those are the things I see because football is not just anymore like who you think is good, who's got this talent level. It's a game of emotion. And I'm gonna tell you, this is what happened before. If his players quit on him and if their heads are down and one thing goes wrong in any of those games, in the Duke game, like it starts off with a kickoff return against them or they get a big play on the first drive or second drive, anybody can be beat. And so that's why I say a UVA is a rivalry game. Yeah, right. UVA is putting up points.
Yeah. So, I think so many people are afraid to say anything because just former players, and you see it all over the place. It's like there's a muzzle on. After he signed the contract extension, he went down to Baylor and he looked at that, Big 12 money, and Baylor's got some big pockets. That has sat wrong with a lot of people. Okay, I didn't make him do that. Nobody else made him do that. He did that. All right, that is going to hurt him.
Absolutely.
It's if you looked at that stadium, it was half empty in the third quarter. We can't have that, and I don't care about. Certainly there's things going on right now And, if they lose next week, oh my goodness, it's going to keep, and they could lose next week and they could lose the week after that. I said could. I never want them to lose. But the bottom line is that, look, I wanted the guy to do well. When we hired him, if we had not hired him, somebody from another school would have hired him for more money in like the next 3 or 4 days. I understand the hire, but the bottom line is it's easy to sit back as a fan and a prognosticator and somebody on social media, and that's what this is. But the bottom line is he's not working out. And go ahead.
Let me ask you this. And I think we don't have to get into any specifics because I think there were some politics and some issues in the background. At one point, Bud Foster was a very hot recruit as an assistant coach to get a head coaching job.
Right. And
he chose to stay there. Again, I won't go into some of the things I've heard about that, but do you think we messed up in not offering Bud that job?
And
we were settling.
You know what came to my head? Maybe we messed up not hiring Bud.
That's what I'm saying. That's my point.
I thought you meant
that's my point. Do you think we messed up by not at least giving him an opportunity for the job?
I think the continuity. Bud was, I think Bud's 61, so Bud was 55. I mean, we would have gotten a good 10, 12, 13 years if my numbers are right. If they're not, I'm sorry. But we would have had a lot of continuity in place. I think you would have seen J.C. Price come back. I think you would have seen Justin Hamilton come back. I don't think you would see Darryl Tapp leaving for the pros. But that's water underneath the bridge. So December 16th,
but the reason I say that, though, who do we hold accountable for this hire, and what are they going to do next? If their fix was
Babcock and you hold Tim Sands accountable, that's it. They're the guys.
And that's my point. Like, their solution was, again, well, if we could have the best of both worlds, we go get an offensive genius or guru or a guy who's supposed to be good with quarterbacks because of success at Memphis, but we see it was actually a system that was kind of in place. And we can keep Bud Foster. Again, I don't know. Maybe Bud didn't want or need the job. Maybe it was a win-win for both. Maybe the administration and maybe Bud were like, hey, if I stay here, we put in this and it'll all work out. I don't know. But I personally was like, but it could have been more of that continuity. The other thing is this. I've always said you don't want to be the one following a legend.
No.
You don't want to necessarily be the first to follow. So I always said, hey, I don't want to be the one following Dean Smith. I think that was Brad Daugherty who did that.
Bill Guthridge, and then it was Brad Daugherty.
Okay. Oh, okay, right. And you don't want to be the one following the legend. So, I would like to think that it's always maybe best to be the one after the one. So if maybe Bud was interested in the job, could we do it now? I don't think it would cost a lot. We could maybe get the hometown discount and see what happens.
Or pay him what he's worth. I mean, the next coach is probably going to get $5 million because Fuente is making 4.25. You got to pay the market rate.
Yeah.
I think Bud's got 6, 7, 8 more years left in him, and that allows someone like Justin Hamilton, who's younger, possibly a Torian Gray, who's a little older than Justin Hamilton. I think that Todd Grantham, who I believe is at Georgia, the defensive coordinator, we can't afford him. So
let me ask you this: would it have even been on the radar if Shane Beamer hadn't taken that South Carolina job? If he had held out and had any inkling that there may be a chance that Fuente was leaving, do you think he would have been either interested in the job, or would Virginia Tech have been interested in him?
I think Shane Beamer is in play 100%. I think Shane Beamer is in a trap job. You can't win at South Carolina. And
I agree.
And if you say we can't afford him because of that South Carolina, I have no idea, but there's some people that can write some checks real fast and get Shane Beamer. So I'm not saying Shane Beamer is going to be the coach, but don't be surprised if he is, because I'm going to tell you right now, Justin Fuente is out of here.
Yeah.
He's out. He's out.
And he's out.
Babcock, I didn't mean it, but I'm going to tell you, Babcock will acquiesce to the powers that be, because there are a lot of powerful people. This is a family. We're Hokies. Fuente is not a Hokie. He went to Oklahoma, went to Murray State. You know, I have a lot of respect for how visionary Whit Babcock is. The hires that he's made some incredible hires: basketball, wrestling, soccer. He's a visionary on fundraising, facilities, etc. But the bottom line is his football is king, and it makes the money.
It pays the bills. Absolutely. Right. It pays the bills. And it's the thing when you think of football in the state of Virginia. You know, I'll admit I'm a VCU guy, but I always thought growing up, you know, Virginia Tech football, UVA basketball. But UVA went after those Ralph Sampson years and after Jeff Jones was gone, and there was this period where UVA basketball was not very good. And Pete Gilliman, I'm going VCU right now. I used to tell Virginia Tech alum and UVA alum, I was like, right now, VCU has the best basketball program in the state. Yep. But that, and it's not just because of the conference, but because of the output. What we were doing, consistently going to the tournament, making the Final Four. But you know what? I like it when there's multiple success. So I'm happy that UVA is having that success. I'm happy when a Virginia Tech, because it's my state. I'm proud of it. And so I want Virginia Tech, I want ODU, I want UVA to succeed. I love when JMU is doing well. Liberty, it's I mean, they've got a quarterback right now that could be, you know, a first round pick.
They got a coach who's awfully appealing also.
Hey, so. Would he be they just come on down 81?
Hugh Freeze? Absolutely.
Hugh Freeze, yeah.
Not 81, so, 460 west, right through Lynchburg. So
460, that's right. 460.
Yeah,
that's right.
So we're going to get off of this and move on, but think about
but the transition we're making. You're right. I'm gonna let you say this, but the transition you're making is this. We're talking about Virginia Tech expectations, and now we're going to talk about if this mess wouldn't happen in the SEC. Go.
Yeah, but we'll segment to that. But I will say this. So we brought a lot of Tech people back in football, and if we bring in a Hugh Freeze or the guy down at Charlotte who's hot, has turned around a few programs, and there's some other players out there. What are we going to do with J.C. Price, Justin Hamilton, Jaron Gavea? What's going to happen? So Bud and Shane answer those issues. So the question is, you know, what's Whit Babcock going to do? Tim Sands, the board, you know, they're all going to come into play. But, you know, if anybody thinks we're hating on, you know, Fuente or anything like that, it's nothing personal. It's a business. This is a big business. Yeah. The guy makes, you know, $90,000 a week. Okay. And he gets a car, he flies on private jets, and, you know, it's comes with the territory. This is a Power 5 conference. So the last,
and we're just fans. We're speaking for the fans. I mean,
I'm an alumni, so, you know, I've got a stake in this. I mean, that's my school. Not mine as it belongs to me, but that's my school, you know. And so, you know, I was a Hokie in 1986, late 1986, almost 35 years. But we'll see how things go. The last thing I want to point out is 6 games left. So you think about this. If they go 500, which, by the way, is not a shoe-in, that's 6-6. So let's transition over. And what do you think? This weekend compared to last was kind of dull, wasn't it?
Hey, man, it's funny because I texted a couple of my friends and we were just kind of quickly discussing the college football Saturday. And I told them, I was like, I think we went from one of the greatest weekends in the history of college football to one of the duds of this season. So this isn't the worst college football weekend of all time, but just for this season, like on Wednesday night, I set my DVR up for all the big games, all the good games, and I kind of, watch them all like back to back to back in the evening. And I was like, where are the games? Like I thought maybe I forgot to record them. They just weren't any ones that were good, or even as they developed, they weren't good games. And really a dud of a weekend. Nothing too extraordinary. You knew Alabama was going to have the revenge factor and be out there. Clemson and Syracuse started it off with a weak Friday night. What are your thoughts on the weekend? I just was like,
I think Georgia beat a very good Kentucky team. I'm starting to believe in Georgia, but I think that
yes, you're right. I agree. They beat a good, but I just wish. My point is, I wish Kentucky had played a little bit better. That's all. I was expecting a little more.
Well,
or hoping for a little more.
It's hard to go down to Sanford Stadium in between the hedges. That team is loaded and they're playing well. And they've had some years where they've been loaded. So, when I think about it, Rusty, the big controversy is Cincinnati has no one left. They have SMU on their schedule, so they should win out. And could you see Cincinnati at number 2 being snubbed from a bowl, or will that happen? A non-Power 5?
No, so that's a great point. No, I don't think they'll be snubbed, and I think this is the year for them to have a chance to get it. Look, could they compete? Absolutely. They were in a bowl game last year, was it against Auburn or 2 years ago, and they lost at the very end. People forget, when you go to some of these postseason bowl games. Sometimes the bigger programs are maybe disappointed they're not in the Final Four or they're not in a bigger bowl, and so you'll get the Power 5 losing to the Group 5. But I like to just look and go, you know what? They're there. Whoever they show up, you show up, and so many times we think tradition or namesake carries the most weight. No, I go, what are you doing? I still think, the AAC is not as good as it's been in the past. Like some of the teams in the AAC are really have had traditionally have done pretty well. You're talking about Navy, Memphis, right, UCF, Houston. Some of those teams are really good. And so, just this year, the bottom half is not good at all. But Cincinnati, look, they have a great recruiting base. Okay, that Ohio, Kentucky, Northern Kentucky area, and Pennsylvania that they can pull from, they've got some athletes, and they're recruiting with the same kids that the Big Ten is fighting for. But didn't Cincinnati play in the Big East for a bit? I don't think they were an original member.
They used to be a part of Metro in basketball. I don't know. I don't think they were Big East. But by the way, Whit Babcock of Virginia Tech was instrumental in that stadium renovation that they did at Cincinnati. Just wanted to throw that in there. So when I look at this, Alabama's Alabama, who else do they have left to play? Not really anybody.
No.
I think SEC champions. Georgia plays Florida next. I think they have off the next week. I don't see Georgia losing to Florida. No way.
LSU, not after what LSU did to Florida.
Right. And then Oklahoma's got a pretty brutal schedule. And then the Big Ten's going to beat up on itself. You got Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State, and Michigan State, all in the East. Iowa got beat by
They're out. They're done.
Yeah. Well,
they're done. It's a wrap. You can't lose to Purdue. You can't lose to Purdue.
I don't think they can beat the East team in the Big Ten championship. And then you're looking at Oklahoma 7-0. Oklahoma State is undefeated.
Mm-hmm.
All right, there you go, right there. One of those two. With Georgia, Alabama, maybe the other two slots, because if Alabama beats Georgia, is Cincinnati out in the cold, and then
no, it's not. I think they're starting to get it right. Let me tell you something. The voters for the AP and even the coaches poll are starting to show you, look, Cincinnati, they maybe belong when so many other teams have to fight it out. And the voters are telling you, Iowa, we don't respect you. They dropped from number 2 to number 11. When Alabama was number 1, they only dropped 4.
That's right.
Okay. They only dropped 4. And it's hard, man, to come up from those double digits to get into that Final Four. Look, they're strategically leaving Coastal Carolina down. Mm-hmm. They know what they're. Look at Wake Forest. Wake Forest, it's not because Wake Forest could win the ACC and not get in. They could win the ACC championship and not get in the Final Four because they're making it hard for them now. Look, a lot of these the predictions and the thoughts and the rankings are based on traditional namesake and conference affiliations. Why are we going to say Cincinnati's not a Power 5 school when in 3 years they will be in the Big 12? You know what I mean?
Something else is Oregon lost early. So, if they went out.
And they have a big win over Ohio State.
What's that?
Oregon has a win over Ohio State. If they can win out.
Because I just wrote down SEC, Cincinnati, Big 10, and Big 12. But if Oregon wins out, and they've got a lot of talent out there, with an Ohio State win. But I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to go with this. I'm going to go with Georgia.
Okay.
And I agree with you. I think if Cincinnati wins out, you got to let them in.
Yep.
And a lot of people are going to disagree with this, but I like Ohio State. That talent, they're starting to play.
Yeah.
If Michigan beats them, so be it. But if I had to pick between Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, I'm picking Ohio State.
Look, the person that comes out of there, to me, has to go in. I contend that the Big Ten has been it is the toughest conference this year. I think those are some good teams.
Yeah, because the SEC's having an off year,
Exactly. Yeah.
LSU, I think Florida. So, and by the way, I've got some friends that live in SEC country, some Hokies that live in Atlanta. And, they're talking about Dan Mullen terrible down in Florida. You've got to win. So let's get that segue going to Ed Orgeron. But before we do that, I'm going to go back and say Georgia, Cincinnati, Ohio State, and the Oklahoma State. But there's a Big 12 championship. So I'm not sure how they're aligned because I'm not that big of a Big 12 fan. But, and obviously Bama's still in play. Oregon's still in play. I like what you said about Iowa, but they have no one left. So if they got it back together, because they look like world beaters against Maryland, but that was Maryland. But, let's flip over to Ed Orgeron. Won a national championship 2 years ago. How can you get he got let go, came to an agreement, he got fired. Okay. How can you get fired?
How, man? I just think it's amazing. I mean,
do you know what his buyout is? His buyout's $17.1 million.
And they're gonna do it.
Oh, he's gone. They got the money. And they only have 4.6 million people in Louisiana. Virginia has 8.6 million people. So that tells you the power of SEC football. And then, he upset Florida. COVID, the year before COVID, he wins a national championship. I mean, that is ridiculous. And, I don't know who they're going to get to replace them, but all your continuity's gone. All your commitments. And, these days, we're in October? Oh, they probably already got their class of 25. They probably got 20 to 23 for next year. They're all getting let out of that. And if they want to go elsewhere, and, they signed on, if it's like every other place. Orgeron's assistants are going to be gone. His graduate assistants are going to be gone. Strength and conditioning are going to be gone. So you look at the kids who are going there. How many are they going to be able to keep?
But I think that's why they let him go. Is because they know even in this offseason, if he was returning, they would have all these other SEC coaches, other people recruiting against them saying, do you really want to go to LSU? Because they didn't let him go this year, but they're definitely going to let him probably go next year. And then you're going to have to deal with this. So I think they're just trying to get ahead of this. And I still think it's unbelievable. The man won a national championship 2 years ago, not 10 years ago, 2 years ago, with one of the greatest teams in college football history, one of the most prolific, one of the most talented teams in college football history. And, you know, maybe you don't think he's the smartest coach or does the greatest game planning, but whatever it is, you know, whether it's just because he can recruit his butt off or he has the personality that kids love and can relate to, I think he was done wrong. So, but that's the business, and that's what I think he understands being in the SEC.
You know,
and that's why I say, Justin Fuente, bro, you got it easy. You know, you got it pretty easy in terms of
talk about football down there. Atlanta's the college football headquarters of the world. That's a college football town. Then you got Baton Rouge, you got New Orleans, you got, you know, Alabama's crazy about football.
The whole state, yeah.
Mississippi, Ole Miss. I mean, it's very different down there. I can tell you, as a fan, what it takes to get an assigned parking space like our lot 1, which I believe is the one right beside Castle Coliseum. I don't know anything about that lot, but I can tell you what, down there, you got to pay a lot more money to get in those lots. And you're talking about premium seating. Yeah, it's a big
in the South. I remember growing up and wondering why, you know, why there weren't as more NFL teams in the South. I mean, and there's a good amount, but it's because like
population,
pro football. Well, population, absolutely,
right.
Pro football isn't as big of a deal in the South as college football. It's not even close.
Well,
I can guarantee you they love their
headquarters. Saints. That's what it's all about. Corporate headquarters.
They love their Saints, but they are much more hype when LSU wins a national championship. I'm sure it would be great for the Falcons to win a Super Bowl, but they would much more prefer Georgia. You know, it doesn't matter if Tampa Bay wins.
That's a very weak pro sports town.
Or the Dolphins win. I can guarantee they love, you know, the Gators and Florida State. Now, Miami's got those fickle fans, but my point is Alabama, the state of Alabama, does not have a professional level of football or any professional major sport. So football is king. It's Auburn, it's Alabama.
Right.
And so that's what they care about there. And, you know, for us here in Virginia, I wish we kind of had that same love throughout the state at that level of, you know, madness. And but I will say the people in this metro area have been very passionate about the Redskins. But I would love to see us have that same type of love for college football, because it's my favorite. It's the best sport to me, the best sport.
Well, yeah. Virginia Tech didn't get into the ACC. They were in, I believe, the Southern Conference. If they would have made that flip, who knows? I mean, things happen in a different way. Like, for instance, what if, you know, we would have built a university right outside of Richmond, 10, 15, 20 miles outside of Richmond, and it's a 50, 60,000, you know, not a commuter school, like, no offense, Mason, ODU, and VCU, commuter schools.
Right. No,
but, yeah. I mean, but we didn't. And the South, because they don't have pro teams, you know.
Wait a minute, Kirk. Wait a minute. They did build a university right outside of Richmond. It's called UVA. It's not that far. I know what you're saying, true. Like a true suburb of Richmond. Yeah. But Charlottesville is not far. And I, you know, Charlottesville, you know, Virginia Tech has done well with their recruit. I'm surprised when we do get some of the recruits from the DMV 757, because, you know, going to Virginia Tech, it's closer to get to UNC and NC State than it is to get to Virginia Tech. And so I just wonder why UVA.
North Carolina's always known that.
Yeah. And UVA, you're right. It's not a direct suburb outside of Richmond, but it's not very far. I think what would be awesome is if there was a UVA or Virginia Tech that was between William and Mary and Richmond, like somewhere right there.
Well, it is what it is. I mean, think about the people
yeah.
and think about the people in Delaware. Think about Pennsylvania. It's a big football state. It's got Pitt, Penn State, Temple, and if there's anybody else, I'm sorry, but Jersey's got Rutgers, and then New York State, they got Syracuse, which is a private school, and then BC actually does really well in football for a Northeastern school. But I just looked up. Shane Beamer is making $2.75 million right now, and
really,
I'm sure
they got him on the cheap.
Yeah. That's his base. I'm sure that's not his total comp.
But that's because he's a first-year head coach, and he's got to try to prove.
Was never a coordinator. Shane Beamer's never been a coordinator. So
yeah,
I'm gonna slide back to the Hokies, and I think it's going to be a big one. But I like your idea about Bud Foster. I think that the Liberty coach is in play. I think some other guys are in play, but I think ultimately Shane Beamer is going to be back in Blacksburg in January, and he's going to be recruiting, and he did a great job. He's a good recruiter, good, solid recruiter, has wonderful relationships. I don't think you're going to see there'll be some shakeup because he's got some folks down in Columbia. He's got Torian Gray with him, but, a lot of these guys that have come in that are going to make a big difference that have came in will be retained. Not all of them. And then,
but he's a name. He's at an SEC school. But do you want Shane Beamer? Do you want Bud Foster? I threw the names out there.
Yes.
But would you really want them, or would you prefer
or Hugh Freeze or the guy from Charlotte? Yeah, you better believe it's a committee. It's the board, and then the big alumni who fund. People that write big checks. The checks are not as big as they are. T. Boone Pickens wrote a check for $250 million to Oklahoma State. That's the biggest athletic gift in the history. The biggest gift in the history of university giving is the New York mayor, Bloomberg, gave, I think, $1.8 billion to Johns Hopkins. So if you want to talk about, what kind of money rolls in the ACC schools, I know that Carl Smith gave $13 million for that renovation for the Carl Smith Center, Scott Stadium, and all the other names. We have Worsham Field, Lane Stadium, which will be Lane Beamer Stadium one day. But the bottom line is that was a $13 million gift. And that was over 20 years ago. It was. Matter of fact, it was like 23 years ago because Vic's freshman year, they were building it. So he gave that money in like 97 or 98. So things have gotten higher, but there's some people that write some big fat checks. They're going to have a lot of say in this, and that's the way it goes. And
so from this show, now know how to do Twitter polls. What poll can we come up with?
Who is Virginia Tech's next coach? And if they think
okay. We'll go Shane, we'll go Bud, we'll go Freeze, and do we go other? And let us know. Fill in the other. What do you think?
Let's make it 5.
Okay.
And Will Healy is a guy being talked about a lot. He is Charlotte.
Who is he?
Charlotte.
Oh, Charlotte, right. Charlotte.
UNC Charlotte. Healy. Right. Okay?
Yeah.
You got to pay Bud. You're going to have to pay Shane. Probably have to pay Bud more. Bud would probably bring in $4.5 million. And if he coaches for 10 years or 8 years, that ain't bad. And I think he's pretty happy in Blacksburg. So, yeah, we'll do a poll out there on Twitter. And our handle on Twitter is at the Kirk and Byrd. And that's it. We don't have show. It's at the Kirk and Byrd. And then our YouTube channel, where you can watch this entire video, is the Kirk and Byrd Show. And then definitely follow us on Twitter. We put a lot of stuff out there. We're also on Amazon, Google, Spotify, and Apple. So Any parting thoughts, Rusty?
Just again, some of the games this past weekend, I thought, it wasn't a great weekend. Some things went as planned. And it's funny to see how teams have dropped in and out of the top 25, with Arizona State taking the L and dropping. Again, Kentucky, a little disappointing in their loss. But Cincinnati, the way they destroyed Central Florida, OU, they handled business with TCU. Michigan State squeaked by Indiana, but they're still in the game. So again, not a lot of surprises, but the season churns along. I want to see now. I want to see this next couple of weeks. We're going to really be able to see what we have as we prepare for this the postseason. But no, that's about it for me. Yeah, I hope Virginia Tech can do some things, but at this point, if it's not on a national level, like, what do we do?
Well, yeah, that's a good way to close out. And I'm looking over here to the left. And I humbly think that the best game next weekend is 3:30 on ESPN, and that is Clemson at Pitt. So there you go. Cross-pollination. If Pittsburgh beats Clemson, that does set them up for possibly having to beat Clemson again. But don't count out Wake or NC State. So I think but other than that, there aren't any marquee games. There are no big games. Georgia, Florida, the world's largest cocktail party in Jacksonville. I think it's still in Jacksonville. I'm sure they're not going to remove that. I don't see Georgia having a problem. They're going to roll. And
can I point out one more game for real football fans? It's happening on Wednesday night. I think true college football fans, if you want to know two really, really
Coastal
good teams,
at Appalachian State.
Coastal and App State. Let me tell you, those teams bought. Like, it's no mistake, or it's not like they're lucky. Like, App State beat Michigan a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Taking care of, like, I think Miami barely beat them earlier this year. No, they're legit. And so that could be the thorn in Coastal Carolina's side. I think if they can get by App State, I think they're going to roll from there. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be a really good game. If you want to watch programs that have grown and developed, like, these are the teams you need to really pay attention to. I'm looking forward to that game. I'm rooting for Coastal Carolina. I really like that program and what they've done.
Appalachian State beat Miami.
They did beat them. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, they did beat them. All right.
Boone, North Carolina is a great Western North Carolina town. It's a beautiful campus. Wednesday night football, that will be a good game. So we're going to sign off. Let's do that poll. Let's do that poll tomorrow, like before 10 a.m. so the high school kids can see it before they go to practice. And please follow us. We are going to release, I've already released a teaser of it. We had an interview last week with Creighton and Cormenius, who is the coach at Bethel High School, Rusty's alma mater in Hampton, Virginia. That'd be Allen Iverson's high school. He has some interesting comments about Allen Iverson just as a football player. So you want to tune in. Those are at the end, and we're not going to tell you what the minute mark is. So are we out? I think we're out.
Yeah, I think Kirk and Byrd are out. Hey, thanks. Great show. I'm looking forward to our next one. Kirk and Byrd out.
Peace.